So, what we are going to talk about this afternoon is growing as lovers.
Amen.
Now, this topic doesn't have much meaning if you haven't been growing as friends, growing as partners, but it's not just about being lovers, it's about growing as lovers.
Amen.
Now, let me just put this to you. We had some head scratching to do to say, what does it mean to grow as lovers? Okay? Because we thought we were doing pretty well as lovers. But we want to grow in all these areas. So what does it mean to grow as lovers? We'll get to that.
I'm on.
Okay? We're learning to live as one. We're learning to live as one by being great friends, being great partners, being great lovers. And in this being great lovers, you see it's the cherry on top. Okay? It is made meaningful and all the more fulfilling if it's built on a foundation of the layers below. Okay? Now that doesn't mean that sex can't be fun without those layers. It's just not the ideal marriage. It's not a marriage built to last. And one of the things that happens in sex is that you are completely vulnerable, right? And so you want to know that your partner, that your spouse, your husband or your wife is with you on the other, that you're great friends, that you're great partners. So the words I have there are sex and intimacy, and these are some key words in Christian marriage, right? In the Christian ethical scheme is exclusivity. That means your wife, right? For me, a husband, my wife, and my wife alone.
Yeah.
It's in my thoughts, it's in my gaze, it's in my desires, and it's certainly how I act it out. Right? Anything else will actually hurt me and hurt us. And the myth, the worldly myth is, well, there's more sex to be had out there. But the truth of that is that destroys what's here. And what's here is more meaningful year after year after year after year. So why would I give that? Of course, it makes no sense. So what we're going to focus on is of course, exclusivity is critical. But there's another word very interestingly used in I don't know why I'm going over it now. I've got verses for it. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is where we're going to start. These are the basic truths that I think we would be great to come away from the class with. You'll pick up other things along the way. But sex in marriage is good.
Amen.
Really good. Okay, now, by the way, sex has a lot of different manifestations, right? I mean, just being intimate is awesome.
Yeah.
And okay, but sex in marriage is good, 100%. This is the way it is in the mind of God. He doesn't get embarrassed when married people have sex, right? They say, well, we got to put up with that because we got to propagate the species. He doesn't. No. He saw a husband and wife. He saw Adam and Eve in the garden. He said, "Go, fill the whole earth, multiply." He wanted his children, when they're married, to have sex. The husband and wife should be captivated or intoxicated by each other their whole lives long. There's a lot in that statement. Captivated, intoxicated their whole lives long. Generally, the one with the lesser sex drive should adapt to the needs of the one with the greater sex drive. Now, let me also say here, let me finish this first. If both partners agree to it, there's nothing immoral about any biblically allowable sexual act done together. But the point is, if it's just you and your husband or you and your wife, the Bible does not restrict you in any sex act that you agree on. Okay? So if you agree on it, it's just the two of you, it's to build one another up, right? No one feels threatened. No one feels, there's no violence. I mean, if you want it, if you agree on it, if you both enjoy it, then God blesses it. So let's move into some scriptures. The first thing is that sex is about the relationship. Okay? In other words, it's not just that you can have a relationship or you can have sex, and if you're good, you can have both. No, actually, to develop the relationship, sex is a part of it. Now, let me point out this. In the New King James Version, I'm going to read one verse 3 different times in 3 different translations. In the New King James Version, Genesis 4 verse 1 says, "Now Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have acquired a man from the Lord." Now, I used to think Adam knew Eve. Was that just because they were trying to hide the fact of what was really going on? They used some funny word. They knew, right? He knew Eve? What is that? No, they had sex, right? Adam had sex with Eve. That's what happened. And she conceived and bore Cain. That's the only time you conceive. It's when you're having sex. So, if we look in New American Standard Bible, it says, "Now the man had relations with his wife Eve." Okay, so now they're getting a little bit more specific. It's a little bit clearer in the translation. "Now the man had relations with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. And she said, I have obtained a male child with the help of the Lord." But it still seems like the translators a little, were they feeling a little squeamish about translating it really the right way? I mean, had relations with, that's a little, general. Okay? In the New International Version, it says, "Adam made love to his wife, Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Now, I want to put to you that it's not because the translators were embarrassed. It's because there's meaning in the original Hebrew word. And the original Hebrew word was knowledge. To know someone is to have an experiential relationship with them. Okay? So in other words, it's one thing to know someone by conversing with them or waving, saying hi, doing some sports together. But when you engage with your wife or your husband in sexual relations, you gain a new level of experiential knowledge. So the word was know. And in fact, this Hebrew word, I believe the word is chada, but I'm not a Hebrew expert, so don't hold me to that. The point is, this word is used in a relationship between God and his people as well. So it's not strictly a sexual word. They weren't embarrassed of the translation, and they were trying to hide what was really going on. It's because this has multiple meanings. It has a layers of depth of meaning. To know one's wife is to enter into a new level of knowledge with her. To know your wife, and wives to know your husbands. So I say this just because, for me, it's important that I keep my focus. It's not just that I'm trying to get something from sex. Sex is part of our relationship, part of the relationship God planned. And so, when we have sex, that's part of the relationship. And it's a matter of knowing one another. So just think about that. Stew on that. Meditate on that as we move on. 1 Corinthians 7, verses 2 through 5, is the definitive master verse in the whole New Testament about married sex. Okay? If you want to, this has more lessons in it about married sex than than the rest of the New Testament as far as I can tell. Because it's so specific and it's so clear about so many things which are critical in sex in your marriage. Okay, so there is a fair bit of confusing stuff in 1 Corinthians 7, like, oh, maybe people shouldn't marry and so forth. But anyway, this passage here, 2 through 5, is really valuable and helpful to us. Okay, so Paul says, but since sexual immorality is occurring, in Corinth, there was a lot of sexual immorality occurring. And even in the church, there was sexual immorality occurring. But Paul says, since sexual immorality is occurring, each man should have sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. Okay? He says they should. Not that it's optional, not that you might do it, not that it's permissible if you're, feeling up to it. He says they should. You should have sexual relations with one another. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife. That's interesting. Usually we read a little bit further. The next verse where it says, and likewise the wife to her husband. But men, we have a marital duty to our wives to have sexual relations with them. Okay? So we better not be remiss in our duties. Wives, you also have a duty. Right? This is an interesting language. Where do we find the language of duty in marriage? Except here. It's an interesting use of that word. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband. That's awesome. And in the same way, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but yields it to his wife. Do you see the mutuality here? That it's as the wife is responsible, the husband is responsible. As the husband is responsible, the wife is responsible. This is a mutual thing. It's not about one partner demanding from the other partner. That's for sure. The responsibilities are mutual. And then, do not deprive each other except perhaps, by mutual consent, and only for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. And how long does it take to pray? Okay, it's time to get back at it. Then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. So, in the opening slide, we had some statements. If at the bottom, in the third one, generally the one with the lesser sex drive should adapt to the needs of the one with the greater sex drive. Okay? That's just about loving one another. That's just about sacrificing for one another. That's about coming up to the needs of your partner. It's sort of a well-known stereotype that as the wives age, they become more and more interested, okay, in sex. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not for anyone out there. What matters is you. You and your spouse, and that you communicate about it, that you are loving toward one another about it, that you are seeking to meet one another's needs about it. The scripture urges you to keep doing it, right? Find ways to have great sex. Don't put it off forever, right? It says only for a time. Come together again. Now, the question comes, well, how often is often? Okay? And that's an opinion matter. It's not a scriptural matter. It's not really a cultural matter. It's just a personal preference, need, physiological matter. So here's some more great sex scriptures. All right? Romans 13, verse 4. marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure. For God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. So, it says marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure. You know, if you can't talk about sex in church, where can you talk about it? I mean, we need to be able to talk about sex in church, and that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. So the fact is, we honor our marriages, and we honor sex in marriage. It just must be kept pure, which means that we keep other relationships out. Okay? The sex is just husband and wife. Okay? That's the way God intended it. That's the way it will be the best for us. If anyone should be tempted otherwise, what you're doing is you're being tempted to hurt your own self, to hurt yourself, and to damage a precious long-term relationship. Okay, then here's a great one, Genesis 2, verse 25. I love this one. Okay, in the garden, Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. Now, let me tell you, that situation needs to be created. Because we're fallen people, right? There's sin all around us in the world. There's all kinds of stuff that we repented of and so forth. And so the ability to make our wife or our husband feel perfectly adequate, okay? In fact, beautiful, handsome, right? Attractive. Someone that you would love to make love to, right? Right? If there is awkwardness between you, or certainly if there are biting comments, or negative, or blame, or insults, or offhand, you know, the scripture talks about the incredible destructive power of words. With a word, right? What does James say? It's like a spark sets a whole forest on fire. You can't get that forest back for years. Well, an inappropriate word in marriage can dampen the flames of sexual engagement for maybe years. So it is the case that I have, in 29 years, Susan, have I ever made any negative remark about your body? No.
And
No.
even if I made a negative remark, you might say, I don't see that. So,
Amen.
And, you know, one of the issues with regard to feeling good about our bodies is weight. Weight is tricky. We know we look better when we have a little bit less weight on us, but it's sometimes it's complicated. You know what we don't want is we don't want our spouse digging at us about our weight. Okay? And Susan, have I ever made a negative comment about your weight? No. In fact, okay, you know the classic no-win situation is when the wife is trying on clothes and she says, "Does this make me look fat?" And the husband, what do you say? So actually, we've navigated, and she doesn't ask it that way because that's mean, that's cruel. But we've navigated this because she actually values my opinion on clothing. And I said, I learned to say, you know, that particular dress is not quite as slimming as that other dress. Or flattering. Yeah, those are, and you know what? She looks at her, yeah, I think I see that. And she values that. But that's hard-won progress, okay? It's general, conventional wisdom that men should not go there. They should not make a comment, okay? But nonetheless, learning, establishing trust, she feels completely desired by me. And I tell her frequently, I love your body, every inch of it. I love your breasts, and so on. Okay? I love you. May they satisfy me always, as the scripture says. As the scripture says. May we not be disobedient to the word of God. Okay? In fact, what a great transition. Proverbs chapter 5, verses 18 and 19. Now, let me just add that Proverbs 5 and 6 are great chapters to read that are outside what you'd normally think of to read about your relationship with your wife. So there are things about lust, there are things about adultery, there are things about, and there are things like this about really appreciating your wife. And I could have expanded this to several verses before and several verses after. But let's read this. May your fountain be blessed. And he just got done saying, your fountain shouldn't run in the streets. Don't share them with anyone. And what he's doing is he's developing an analogy of your wife being a fountain. Okay? Don't share it with anyone. Okay? Should your fountain run in the streets? No, keep your wife to yourself. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. A loving doe, a graceful deer, may her breasts satisfy you always. May you be ever intoxicated with her love. I mean, this is the word of God. Wow. Now let me just say, that breasts come in all shapes and sizes. Not all shapes, but there are many different shapes and sizes. And what your wife needs to know, brothers, is that you desire nothing different than your wife's breasts. You don't want bigger breasts, you don't want smaller breasts. Now, those are the perfect breasts for me. Okay?
Come on, Suzanne.
And as we age, guess what? Breasts change their shape. In fact, after a first child, breasts change their shape. And you know what? Those are breasts that fed my children. I love them. I love them. Your wife needs to know that what she's got is exactly what you desire. Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Do you have any comments at this point? No. Okay. If she had a comment, it would be that, Steve, what you've got is absolutely what I desire. Because guess what? Penises come in various shapes and sizes. And as we age, we respond differently. That's right. Okay? So a little bit more about that later. Okay? But the point is that what I've got is what she desires. And I am grateful for that. I am grateful for that. You see, it's about knowing one another. It's about the relationship. It's not about having the ideal form like what you saw in the magazine or what you saw in the movie or what you saw in the advertisement. Okay? That has very little to do with knowing a woman or a woman knowing her man. Okay, and then, oh, by the way, there's not much to add here in Song of Songs. Let me just say that the whole book, 8 chapters worth, or 9, I forget, is a big erotic poem. Okay, what? That's in the Bible? Yes, that's in the Bible. It's an erotic poem. It's back in the days when I think Solomon only had 20 wives. So it's about Solomon and this young woman back when she was just one of 20 wives. So, okay, we got to filter out some of the stuff there that, okay, well, that doesn't apply to us. But nonetheless, the reason that it's in the scripture, we can speculate, is that there is an important role in the spiritual life for erotic love. And I'll just read this verse. How beautiful you are and how pleasing, my love, with your delights. Your stature is like that of the palm, and your breasts like clusters of fruit. I said, I will climb the palm tree. I will take hold of its fruit. May your breasts be like clusters of grapes on the vine, the fragrance of your breath like apples. Now, if he's climbing the palm tree to take hold of the fruit, where was he before that? I leave it to your speculation. Okay, so here's a good question. Right? We got married 29 years ago. We figured out, and by the way, we were both virgins when we got married. Okay? And that was a blessing. And why is that a blessing? It's because we don't have any memories of anyone else. There's no comparisons to make. And anyone who has had sexual relations outside of marriage has that obstacle to overcome with your wife or your husband, right? That, no, I love you. I'm not in my mind comparing you to anyone else, right? That is an obstacle. And so it's a burden that people who have had sex before marriage have to bear, okay? But your objective, right, is to drive out fear, right, with love. To drive out fear, to let your spouse know you are the only one for me. I am captivated by you. I am intoxicated by you, and you are the only one.
Amen.
So what does it mean to grow as lovers? Because we pretty much figured out, okay, well, it took us a couple of weeks maybe to figure out how she could have an orgasm, okay? Night number 1, I was all over it, right? Orgasm. We made love 4 times in our first 24 hours of marriage. But it took a while to figure out how does the female orgasm, how does Susan's orgasm work? It took a while to figure that out. Eventually, we figured out, okay, so we need to take turns. And for us, it was, intercourse was great for me and to reach orgasm, and it just warmed her up. Okay, but it did warm her up. It warmed her up, and then we needed some manual stimulation for her to orgasm. So later on, we learned, wow, it's actually, according to some study somewhere, I mean, who knows who asked these questions, but like 75% of women don't have vaginal orgasms. Okay, they don't have orgasms during intercourse. Only 25% do. So those women, they probably need to achieve orgasm with direct stimulation of the clitoris. So, okay. So, one of the things you can do is just relax about your sexual performance. It's like different people respond different ways.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Right? You are just the person God wanted you to be. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And you being with your spouse is just exactly the way God wanted it to be. And the challenge that we have is to grow as lovers. This is not about mastering additional sexual techniques. That's not what it's about. If you want to do that, have fun. Okay, it's fine. But positions and so forth. That's fine. Experiment. But the growth is in the depth of understanding.
Yeah. Well, one thing when I was coming into the marriage, I remember one of my best friends that got married in the church right before me. She said to me that, she had that sex was really about communication. And I was so disappointed. I wanted it to be about pleasure. I mean, I waited 33 years. I was looking for it, but I realized the intimacy, the real intimacy is in the communication. It is in the listening to each other, thinking about each other's needs, putting their needs before your needs. That is the real intimacy and the communication that she was talking about. I think with communication, honesty is important. I've heard of women faking orgasms, and to me that's a little deceitful to your husband. And not that you have to lay there like a mute and not say a word, well, if you're taking turns, so to speak, but just you want that honesty in communication and being able to express what you like and what you don't like and what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with. I think we'll go into that in one minute. But this is, and I earlier you had said something, there was a note on there about who determines the frequency. And there's no given that the male wants it more than the female. And that's frequent. That's usually the way it is. But but this is where the self-denial, the submitting to the needs of one another's, where you would submit to the needs of the one that has the greater desire, whoever that is. But go. Okay.
So let's talk first about the front face, and then we'll talk about the depth. All right. Now, let me just say that this is sort of a new diagram for me. Okay, because I've been thinking about it. I created a sex journal, writing all my thoughts in the sex journal, and trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to grow in love as lovers? And one of the things I thought of is that sex usually has sort of, at any point during the sexual experience, there's usually one of you is initiating or the other. Okay? Now, if you're both initiating at the same time, Lord help you. Okay? So you got to coordinate. But it's a good thing. I mean, if you find that you're both initiating at the same time, that's great if it works for you. But generally speaking, right, either the husband is initiating or the wife is initiating. Okay? And so that's what I've got down at the bottom. Either he initiates or she initiates. And then on the side, I've got there's for his pleasure or for her pleasure. Okay? So in other words, all this is sort of a framework for thinking about, what is our lovemaking like? What is it usually like? And I think the typical arrangement is probably our arrangement. But I don't know. It's not like I've surveyed a lot of people. Generally speaking, it's me initiating. Okay? And so I'm initiating for my pleasure. Okay? Not that I don't understand and know what she likes and doesn't like. I know. Okay? I know what she likes and doesn't like, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm moving toward orgasm. And then I turn to her. And I pay attention to her for her pleasure. And I'm the one initiating. So we operate in that left column. Sort of in the upper left box, then we move down to the lower left box. Now, one dimension of growth could be, hey, what do you say we work out something that you would like to initiate on? Okay? Maybe Susan would like to, hey, why don't we make love on, tonight, and why don't you plan it? Just whatever you want to do. You be the initiator. That might be a way to grow in your lovemaking. I mean, it might be, Or, maybe what you want to do is, hey, I'm going to pleasure you, and then you pleasure me. Just the way however you want to do it. And then it's like, well, okay, there's the same old thing that we always does. It seems to work. But should we experiment with something a little bit? Should we experiment with a different room, right? Some different props, maybe some furniture, maybe some different clothing, maybe some different lighting, maybe some different music. I don't know. Figure it out. The point is, your progress in this area is really going to come from the discussion that you have with your spouse. It's not going to come from me. But what I want to say is, what if I said, oh, I'm really going to initiate, I'm really going to pleasure my wife? Do I really know what she likes and doesn't like? Or do I only know what she puts up with? Okay, I mean, like we do it, it's satisfactory. Do I really know? And oh, by the way, you may want to talk about this in advance of, sort of navigating the sexual act while you're conversing about, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Maybe a little tricky. Okay, it may not be the most romantic, but good communication, you figure out what works for you. The point is that I want to ask my wife more questions so that I know. See what this says? The depth of understanding is a whole new dimension. It's like, when I do this, how does that make you feel? When I do this, what does that make you think? Do you get excited about the prospects of what's next? Do you dread what's next? Like if I roll over, it's the morning. I've just woken up. Okay? I've got direction. I roll over, snuggle next to her. Is she thinking, oh no, here it comes. I want to sleep for another 20 minutes. Okay? So there's some working out in terms of engagement. Right? In other words, so one of the things, here's some of the things I've learned about my wife. In the morning, okay, she doesn't want to seize the moment. Okay? If I roll over and say, hey, what do you say we make love?
Let me go to the bathroom and brush my teeth.
Now, let me go to the bathroom, let me brush my teeth. Let me go downstairs and empty the dishwasher and let me feed the cat. Okay?
Or let me go and pray.
Yeah, well, that was one morning not too long ago. It was like, hey, hon, what do you say? She goes, we're an empty nest. So we should be having sex all the time, right? It's been COVID. We should be having sex all the time, right? Okay, so anyway, I was like, hey, honey, what do you say we make love? And she's like, well, I really want to give my first fruits to the Lord. I got it. Okay, so I'm learning. I got to catch her before she gets up. I got to catch her before she gets up and gets going. Because she got up before me, and then I was like, oh, I woke up, I'm like, oh, she's stirring in the bathroom. I gotta get her before she gets, oh no, she already had her mindset. So, you know what? I could blame her. I could complain about her. But is that going to do me any good?
No.
It's not. I want to learn my life. I want to learn about life. If you know what I do, like when I get up at 7 and I know, in fact, we do this often. We go to bed and we say, tomorrow morning, we've got some time to sleep in. At what point, if I'm in the mood, would be okay to wake you up? And she says, 7:30. No, 8. Okay? Okay? So what you're saying is if I roll over at 8 and start rubbing your back, then you're cool with it. Yeah, that'd be fun. Okay? So there's a certain amount of negotiation. But you know what I do between 7 and 8? I go feed the cat. And I go feed the cat, and if there's dishes to unload in the dishwasher, I take care of that. And then I come up and I turn on a few electronic candles, and I put on a little music right before 8. You know, I might do that. Okay, not every time, but and you know, and then we've learned that just back rubbing is so wonderful. Back rubbing is so wonderful, and it leads places.
Yeah.
Okay? Any comments?
Well, with learning each other, I frequently will say, I'll think about this in the afternoon or, you know, around noon. I say, hey, honey, what about tonight? Do you want to spend time together or la la? Is that the right word?
That's not the word we use.
That's not the word we use.
How about a rendezvous tonight?
Rendezvous is all right. But that's a code word to say around the kids. Anyway, and then, you know, the day goes on, dinner, your evening, whatever you were doing, and then by the time I crawl into bed, it's like, hey, are you something? I completely forgot. So, you know, that happens. There's some negotiation, like, okay, I promise, let's go ahead, or
Let's try it again tomorrow.
What about tomorrow morning? Feed the cat, but anyway, so I've already tried not to make promises that I'm not going to.
So let me just say that these are opportunities to grow.
Right.
They're opportunities, and please look at it that way. It's not, I am so frustrated. I don't get what I want. No, these are opportunities served up on a golden platter for us to grow in our communication and in our relationship. So, I do want to ask a lot of these questions about understanding her mind. Like, instead of saying, but you promised you would make love tonight, just say, okay. So tell me, what's been your thought process throughout the day? Right, I might ask. Oh, I haven't thought about it a moment. Okay, well that's how she works. Right? She expresses a good intention, and then she's cleaning until 11:30 p.m. and she finally goes up and she's dead beat. She wants to go to bed. And I'm like, okay, well, it's time. But you know what? It takes a little understanding, a little negotiation, a little, understanding and adaptation. So let me just say that understanding your spouse that is a super important growth dimension. Okay, like there have been. Okay, let me just say that we're 69. We're 62 and 59. Sorry, we're 62 and 59, and we're getting older. Okay, now it was for all my years. However we got there, if it's love-making time, I've got an erection. And we're good to go. But for the first time at age 55, I found that my erection was not quite showing up on time. And that as we were progressing, it was regressing. And I said, what is this? No one told me. And I don't know how I could be oblivious, but I started doing a little research, right? And they say that men between 40 and 60 tend to experience a downturn in sexual efficacy, okay, in effectiveness in sex. So being able to get an erection, being able to keep an erection, being able to sustain an erection through orgasm. Well, I'm glad I made it to 55, okay? But you know what that did? It brought out a whole host of new emotions, insecurities, opportunities for us to grow as lovers. And so we started exploring other things. Like we learned the full body massage with coconut oil. Okay? It's a really nice touch, so to speak.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Right? That we learned that the back rub, and in fact, rubbing all over. Well, that's a repeated massage, but just without the.
Yeah, I think what we learned is that sexual intimacy does not have to equal sexual orgasm. It's still sexual intimacy, and you do feel close, and you feel you're caring for each other. And so I think that's the point of what we learned with that. Yeah.
And so what's super important is that no one feels like a failure.
Right.
And that no one is made to feel like a failure. There's sometimes after sexual intercourse, in fact, it's not uncommon, that she says, that was nice, I just want to roll over and go to sleep. Okay? So what we usually do is after I reach climax, then there's a little bit of cleaning up to do, and then I say, okay, do you want to turn?
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, this is tricky, because after a man has had an orgasm, there is a powerful desire to sleep. Am I wrong? No. There is a powerful desire to sleep. And you know what? It's also the case with the woman. Or if Susan is an example, then there's a powerful desire for a woman to sleep after orgasm. So we can try to do her first and then me, but that would give her the harder role of trying to stay awake while she's trying to help me. Or I could just take that role. And let me tell you, sometimes I really have struggled to stay awake, but I stay with it.
Yeah.
And she appreciates it.
Yeah.
So, it may be that in our married lives, she's had more orgasms than I have. Because on a typical outing, right, I got one and she got 2 or 3 or, something like that. So a woman can have multiple orgasms one after another. Okay, so, that's great. The point is that this is a matter of serving one another. It's not just about me getting mine and then going off to sleep. Brothers and sisters, right? Pay attention to your partner. Make sure that both are happy. Because when both are happy, you will be happy. So this is an exercise. Now, it may be kind of hard to know. You can read that, I think. Anyway, this is what I'm calling this is the sexual landscape. Okay? The set of all sexual things that you would consider doing, that you have done, or that you think you wouldn't do, but that you want to put down. So this is an exercise which I'm offering as a way for you to have good discussions with your spouse about things sexual, about sex. Okay? And let me just read these instructions to this exercise. Get a sheet of paper, write down all the things that you've ever done together during sex, or all the sexual things you've ever done together. It's just a restatement. Add any details or variations that matter to you. Like if it matters to you whether we had sex under the Christmas tree, or we had sex on the couch, if these variations matter to you, then write them down as separate things, okay? So write down all the things that you've done, okay? Then continue writing down all the things that you've never done yet, right? Whether they're desirable or not desirable. Positions, locations, props, circumstances, all variations that you want to think of. Okay? This is just an exercise. You can take it or leave it. I'm just offering it as a way that you can explore good communication with your spouse. Then go through each of these things that you've got on your list and rate them 1 through 5. Okay? Number 1, no, I don't want to do that.
That's okay.
Okay? That's okay. That's okay. So the wife is going to rate it and the husband's going to rate it. No, I don't want to do that. Number 2, I'm open to talking more about that. I'm open to it. Let's open to talking. Okay? Let's not put it on the agenda anytime soon. I'm open to continue talking about it. Number 3, I'm fine to do it if you want to. I probably won't bring it up, but if you want to, I'm game. Okay? Number 4, I enjoy doing it under certain circumstances. Okay? Like one of the things I've learned about my wife is that cleanliness is a very important aspect of sexual relations. So there's certain things that we should wait till we take a shower for them. I won't even bring it up if there's not a recent shower. Okay? So, I enjoy doing it under certain circumstances. Okay, fine. And there's all kinds of opportunities for you to discuss. What are those circumstances? Right? Under what circumstances might you enjoy that? And then, number 5, I enjoy doing it just as often as possible. Okay? It'll be interesting to see. I don't know if there'll be any number 5s on her list. Okay? I don't know. That would be a way to grow as lovers. If I asked those questions, if I knew those things. And then discuss transitions. Now, that may sound funny. What do you mean discuss transitions? It's like those little things that we say to each other, like, do you want to turn? Or do you just want to roll over? Right? We understand that. That has a certain meaning to us. And if she just wants to roll over and go to sleep, that doesn't mean that she didn't have a nice time. Right. It just means that she, it's a lot of work for her to, wind herself up for an orgasm. Even if I'm doing the stimulating, she's got to, so it may be more work than she's up to tonight. Okay? That's fine. No problem. But the transitions are, if you've got this list of all these things, it's like, and you talked about what are the conditions that you'd be willing to do this or interested in doing that or you'd like to explore this, you probably don't want to say, hey, let's do this on a night that's just not appropriate for it. And so discussing the transitions, what would I say that would say, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we try this? When I made the suggestion to Susan about doing this, she said, oh, that would be fun. Then we'd have this whole menu of things we could try over time. Yeah, I like that. Now, we've been so busy doing the whole marriage retreat preparation that we haven't actually had time to do this exercise ourselves. But we're looking forward to it. What should you say or not or do under what circumstances in order to proceed to that particular sexual delight? All right? So, first of all, there's the debate. Spontaneous sex or scheduled sex? And I think it's mainly a male opinion that scheduled sex is, scheduled sex is a loss. It's gotta be spontaneous. Okay? And maybe that's because the moment, the husband gets aroused at unpredictable times, and then and there is the right time. Okay, but look, I just want to put to you this. Spontaneous sex is not always practical.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 4 in the afternoon, and the kids are whatever. It's not practical. It's just not practical. Okay? So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this to you all, that scheduled sex is better than no sex.
Right.
Spontaneous sex may be supreme. It may be, okay? But in our lives, we've usually gone with scheduled sex. Now, scheduled sex could be, hey babe, how about a rendezvous tonight? Okay?
Don't forget.
Yeah. So I might be out in the kitchen helping her, do the dishes that night. And I might be, now, is there anything else that we need to, get off our plate? Right? I might be helping her extra that night. And so that it doesn't need to be 11:30 and she's dead tired.
Right.
So even that's for us is scheduled sex, right? It's like, let's do it tonight, or let's do it tomorrow morning. And there's certain days a week that work well in the morning because we're retired. I'm a little more flexible in my schedule. Kids are out of the house, or they're going to be reliably sleeping late. Okay, and so to me, scheduled sex is better than no sex.
Yeah, sometimes parenting teenagers is a hard time in life, but the one good thing is they sleep late. So morning is good.
Yeah. So anyway, in our younger married days, okay, when it was trickier, more complicated to find spots to make love, we set a target of twice a week, okay? And what we said was, if we haven't made love by Friday night, then Friday night we're on, no matter how late it is.
Yeah.
So if we want to do something early in the week, that's cool. And then Friday is an option, not a mandatory. But if we've gotten all the way through the week to Friday, then Friday night we're making love. Okay? And then if we get to Saturday night and we haven't made love twice, then Saturday is mandatory. Okay? So I'm just giving you some ideas. Okay? These are not recommendations, they're not advice. I'm just telling you what we did. And this way we were able to have a regular sex life, okay? And we were free to be spontaneous, but if it got down near the end of the week, the weekend was our time. Otherwise it would roll around and it might be another week. We didn't want that. So Friday night and Saturday night were our sweeper nights, our catch-up nights. Do you have anything to add?
No.
I'm saying the whole thing here, so she's got nothing to say. And then this idea that we both get a turn. I already elaborated on that, right? You both get a turn. So husbands in particular, right? Well, at the beginning of our marriage, it was more complicated to figure out how to successfully give her an orgasm than to give me an orgasm. I was easy, she was a little tricky, complicated. But she mastered it, and I mastered it after, a couple of weeks. Okay? I don't know. Maybe it would have been around. But the point is, make sure that each of you get your fill.
Yeah.
All right?
And this is, this is something that, sometimes this is hard for women if you had some trauma or have suffered some abuse or something, and so it's an area to move into gradually and to figure out and to be really sensitive to each other. And I know we've had some friends that got in patterns of they've been married for 10 years and the wife has never had an orgasm. And they still have sex, and you know, and it's still something she's growing in. And, you know, sometimes it just takes some women longer. It just takes longer to figure it out or to figure out why that's hard, why there's a block. But anyway, just to be sensitive to that. And I think the next point of daily affection is good. We heard early in our marriage, we heard a funny thing. And Stephen's kind of referenced it when he said, I might be hungry in the kitchen, so we get upstairs faster. But we heard this funny thing, and it was advice to the husbands. Husbands, if you give it to your wife in the kitchen, she'll give it to you in the bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
If you help her around the house, she'll be more willing, less tired, and able to give it to you in the bedroom. But in some ways, to me, that is a part of affection. Like I really warm up to people when they serve me. And so that is an affection language for me. Service is that. It doesn't have to be housework. Sometimes I might be preparing a lesson to speak at church, and Steve will help me with that. And that really means a lot to me. I appreciate that kind of affection.
So daily affection is good. With the kids out of the house, okay, or mostly out of the house, we started exploring, you know, we should just sleep naked. As soon as the kids move out of the house, we're sleeping naked. Okay, and there's just been a lot more, what's that? Oh, no, that's okay. There's been a lot more, let's just say, daily snuggle time. Okay? That doesn't mean that it's not daily, you know, sex.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sexual, but it's affectionate. It's gentle. But we just like to cuddle. We like to snuggle. It's skin to skin, what we like to say. Oh, skin to skin is so wonderful. So daily affection is good. If you can work it out, I mean, even before the sleeping naked days, if you know, let's just say there was periods where it was regular nightly snuggling.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, love one another. You know, an evening prayer with a little snuggle time. That's a good combination. Okay. Then back to this topic of different stages of life bring up different issues, right? For you young marrieds, it's like you have abundant opportunities. No kids, take advantage of it.
Yes.
Don't rush right away, any kids. Take advantage of it. Really explore, you know, enjoy. It will never be like that again. And one of the myths I have is, okay, after I'm done raising kids, then I can go back to like it was when we were just married. Well, it turns out the equipment doesn't work the same way. So you will never, ever experience the phase of life you're in ever again. So take advantage of it. And then when you move past that, now you've got a pregnancy. Oh, I mean, there's all kinds of new stuff going on. You need to really to communicate with each other, love each other, learn what can she do during pregnancy. Be sensitive. So there's that. Then there's, you know, then the baby's born. All right, and by the way, we've talked to some people who are like, oh, they haven't had sex since she got pregnant. You need to re-examine that, okay? Right? I mean, find a way that the people who are, the members among you who are up for sex can get some, okay? But then you can imagine the seasons of life roll on, and things are different. And by the way, the kids get older, they start staying up later than you do. It's much harder to find times, okay, etc. And then there's, of course, the later stage of life.
I was thinking there was a funny period where the kids are really little, but they're too little to understand what's going on, but they're big enough have to like come in your room during the night or something. We would never let them be in our bed. You know, we kind of felt like that was kind of sacred, like keep them. And so if they were scared, they could come in our room, but they had to sleep on the floor around the bed. But
And we would set pillows up for them every night because we knew they would do that.
But we mastered the stealth maneuver. So absolutely silent, absolutely quiet, but everything's happening. So, you know, just different stages, yeah.
So we're wrapping up here. There is a section for self-reflection. There's a section for discussion with your spouse. And let me just say this, that bringing up the topic of sex is tricky. Okay? Just let it be one of those things that you talk about as you're working on talking routinely. Okay?
Not during sex.
Yeah, not during sex. You don't want the pad and paper out during sex. Okay, can we talk about sex? Hey, what do you say we talk about sex tonight? Okay? Put the reservation out there. Whatever, bring it up. Get so you're comfortable about that. You might want to do it in your weekly times together. You might want to figure out how you can bring it up sort of at another time. But the point is that if you're feeling things and she doesn't know, or you don't know what she's feeling or thinking, boy, you really need to have some sex talk time. So with that, I leave it and turn it back over to our MC.